In my last MFR video, we talked about the bakery as well as the Hydra server through the eyes of Bud the Stud, my cluster leader. There was some backlash because some other alliances were named and they were not a part of the conversation. I apologize for that. I have spoken with them since, and some things have come to light. I asked if I could bring them on and talk about it, but they said they would rather not. In today's video, we will be talking to NRG is Internal, the alliance leader of X-Men Gold, one of the top 3 alliances on New Stark City. We're going to talk about X-Men Gold as well as the New Stark City server and how they've progressed. In the next video, we'll be talking to Eros Trinidad, which is the leader of Chaos Theory, doing the same thing. The Penthouse players' leadership have decided not to be part of this. Let's get into it. What's going on, guys? Kigerr here, and today I'm joined by NRG is Internal, the leader of X-Men Gold. What's going on, man?
Hey, Kiger, how's it going? Thanks for having me on. Gold Team is doing their best to stay competitive on a very fierce server. How's
Yeah, it
everything going
sounds
with you
like it.
today?
Pretty good, pretty good. And NRG knows that the purpose of this video is to talk about his alliance and how the New Stark City has progressed in the eyes of X-Men Gold Team. So, the game launches. Where are you at? Did you initially make X-Men Gold? Were you in a different alliance? How'd that go?
So actually, X-Men Gold Team was a carryover from another game called Marvel Realm of Champions, which unfortunately only lasted about a year before they shut it down.
Mm.
And the intention was always to create a presence in future Revolution. So I grinded for maybe 4 or 5 days, just far enough to create the alliance. I did, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing, to be totally honest, for maybe the first month and a half, 2 months. I kind of feel bad for the initial roster. We had maybe 7 or 8 guys come from Realm of Champions. I think you only had maybe 10 initial slots. And
Okay.
then as we progressed in level and started filling out more, we were pretty much just auto accepting for a while. Fun fact, Puddle of Soda was on Gold Team before he was in Penthouse. Also, another player, New Stark players may be familiar with. Oh, we
Just.
can't do specific names. I'm sorry. Yep, forgot. My bad.
Mhm.
Okay, but we had a fairly interesting roster initially before everyone sort of went their separate ways. But
Sounds good.
yeah,
And
we
then
didn't really know. I'm sorry.
after a week or so, a month maybe, everyone kind of settles in where they're going to be at, right?
Yeah, exactly. Water always finds its own level, and the hierarchy started forming. Penthouse was one of the top alliances even before alliance rankings. Everyone kind of knew that. Chaos Theory, and interestingly enough, Omega Flight was really strong pre-merger. I don't think a lot of people remember that,
Okay,
but
so
Omega
all
Flight used
three
to
of
be a really
you
strong alliance.
were who are currently the big top three on the current New Stark City were all from the same server
Yes, sir.
pre-merge.
Yes, all from New Stark One.
That's
Correct.
crazy.
Yeah. New Stark One had a lot of spenders. Without mentioning names, it's going to be tough, but we had a lot of really just strong competitive guys. So there was more than enough to go around.
Yeah, with
And the
Hydra,
fact that okay,
with Hydra, it was mainly Hydra One and Hydra Seven that ended up creating the now known as Endgame. There are obviously a couple of people that came from other servers, but it was mostly Hydra One and Hydra Seven.
hmm yeah, well, I mean, Disposable Heroes came from New Stark 7, I believe. I'm going to get killed if I'm wrong for that. But they came post merger. And after a couple of months of the merger, they ended up maybe the top 7 to 10 guys from there merged with Penthouse, which just sort of re solidified their number one spot. So I
Okay,
guess technically you could say they're sort of a hybridization. But yeah, the top three have more or less always been X Men Gold, Penthouse, and Chaos Theory.
okay, so we're still pre-merge. We're still on New Stark One,
hmm
and how did Dark Zone and things like that progress for you guys? Because there was no Alliance War yet, right? So,
Correct.
how did things go between the top alliances at that time?
So initially, Dark Zone was pure PvP. And in my opinion, that period of time was the best Dark Zone the game had to offer. Even though the times were more open in terms of when you could enter, there was always heavy competition for primes. There was a lot of PvP going on, a lot of mostly respectful smack talk in world chat, and it was just a great time.
I did really
People.
enjoy that time where, even though it was time limited, it also had a midday time slot for what I like to call hot time, that they call it in some other games, where you have, you can go all times a day to get that Dark Zone stuff, but if you go at, I think it was noon to 2, you get double points, which I'm totally fine with, right?
Sure.
Uh, be-
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I'm sorry. No, what I was going to say was, with the way they currently restructured Dark Zone, I think cutting it to a half hour is a huge mistake. I don't know if anyone really enjoys Dark Zone in its present form, but back then, man, it was great. It was kind of like the Wild West, right? If you went in without a PvP build, if you went in underprepared, it was like good luck.
I will say that not on my server, but if we look over to the SEA Southeast Asia servers, they have flat out documentation between the top 10 alliances setting out times to go in so no one touches anyone.
Oh, that's just sad. That's so contrary to the spirit, in my opinion.
It is under the PvP section, but it is also the primary points is from PvE, which is
Hmm.
just a confusing game mode of what they're trying to do with it. Because once you
Yeah,
kill
I
someone,
couldn't
what
agree
is it,
more.
2 or 3 times, then you stop getting points from them.
Hmm.
That's to stop
Exactly. Which I,
feeding. But we're getting off into a different subject here. So
yep.
it
So
ends up.
basically, then you had the three major alliances form right around the time they started introducing Alliance Omega Wars. That's when Gold Team really started kind of uh, righting the ship and trimming the fat, so to speak. And I think there were maybe a grand total of 4 weeks of transitional periods that we didn't really hold down at least a third spot. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, New Stark One pre-merger was a beast. I think, like you said, the fact that the top three alliances on the post-merger server are all from New Stark One kind of validates that.
All right.
But
So
it's always a wild time.
now merger happens. Run me through that chaos.
Merger day was a lot like Future Revolution Christmas, in my opinion. I just remember at reset time, the day of the merger, World Chat was the most active I'd ever seen. Some alliances were outright advertising for mergers with stronger alliances. Everyone was like talking to everyone and wheeling and dealing. It was kind of up in the air where the big names from other servers were going. As a
Who
matter of
was
fact, we had. Oh, sorry.
X Men Gold in talks with?
So I was just going to say, interestingly enough, we were very close to merging with Elegy, who around merger time still had quite a few strong players. The leader of Elegy at that time, their sticking point was they wanted our members to go over to them because they wanted to keep the name Elegy,
Yeah, because they
even
are
though,
a actually kind of big
yes.
gaming community of
Hmm.
a bunch of different games and whatnot, which would make sense
Yeah,
why they want to keep their name for that reason.
yeah, and like I told the leader, if this was another game, I probably would have been more inclined to agree. But we were a higher level, we had more roster spots, so to me it was sort of counterproductive. Ironically, we did end up getting the four members from Elegy we really wanted, so it ended up working out for the best.
Okay.
I was trying to go after a certain Doctor Strange main who ended up going to Penthouse. I'd like to think I was at least half close there, but who really knows? We were talking to a few guys, but we're the topic and subject of a lot of vitriol
Yeah, we
over
will
on New
definitely
Star.
get into that. Merger happens. Everyone's kind of wheeling and dealing, and then things kind of settle back into the normal top three.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I said, if you look at the top three as it's constituted right now, it's probably been that way for 99% of the game's existence.
All right, and what happened to Dark Zone once that all happened?
Yeah, so then they reintroduced the PvE territory, which I'm not necessarily opposed to, but they also shortened the entry windows as well as your amount of time in Dark Zone. And in my opinion, that's when Dark Zone just became more of more of a burden than anything anyone could actually enjoy. I mean, the PvE zone, I don't know if most people realize this, but you get as many points for killing a prime in the PvE zone as you do a mini in the PvP territory. So this notion that they were trying to kind of level out the playing field for the weaker players in the PvE alliances, excuse me, is just a little ridiculous.
Well, not so much for the points, but for getting the cards and
Well, and
things
then
like that.
they capped rewards in the PvE territory, right? So
Mm-hmm.
even there, you have uncapped rewards in PvP. So even if it was about the cards, then to me that just still doesn't hold water.
All right, so merger happens, all that happens, and then now we have the alliance bonus, right? 4%, 8%, and
Yes.
12%. Um, did that change anything for X Men Gold?
I mean, unfortunately, we don't typically finish a lot higher than third, so the 4% buff is nice. I would like to see what a 12% buff feels like. Maybe that would be a game changer. But I think really the alliance ranks in general are more of a recruiting tool. If anything, I'm sure at the top end of it, the buff is nice, but for us, it's just kind of there.
Okay, so the buff's kind of whatever for you guys, and you said your no X Men Gold is generally the number three out of the top three.
Yes.
Are there? Do you have any ideas of how to make that not happen? Like how to move up?
So we have always been a PvP focused alliance. When alliance raids came in, that sort of, in my opinion, shifted the priority to PvE for the game. And a lot of us just weren't built that way and didn't have PvE builds. So we've been kind of playing catch up there. Like we're about a third of the way through step 19 now. Um, I don't know that we'll finish 20 this week, but we'll certainly get there. And once we start finishing 20, which I think we're probably a week or two out of, at least in terms of the majority of the country.
Hello.
Geiger, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. You back?
Hey,
We're good.
sorry, I don't know what happened. Yep. So, like I was saying, once we start finishing 20 routinely, which I think we're probably a week or two away from, that should level out the majority of the contribution difference between us and the top two alliances. And from there, I hope we can compete for second or maybe even the first spot.
Okay. I mean, I hope that works out for you guys. And as you said, a lot of this would have been a whole lot easier for X Men Gold if there wasn't so much controversy around you. Correct?
Well, so ironically, even before I was public enemy number one, there's a certain Iron Man on our team who's a fairly well known player in his own regard.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, well, depending on who you listen to, he was either asked to leave or left Penthouse. And when we added him, that brought a lot of fire on us. He's always been sort of a controversial guy. I personally only care about performance and how you treat me personally. And this guy has been like, I don't know why I ever had a problem with him. To me, he's one of the most knowledgeable and just friendly players in the game. But I guess it didn't work out with Penthouse, and I couldn't be happier personally. But yeah, so initially he was the problem. And
Okay.
then once that kind of subsided, because I guess you can only whip a horse for so long, then I kind of came into the spotlight for better or worse.
So we're not going to go too deep into all that, but what ended up making you the bad guy?
So essentially, there's some stuff on the internet that was attributed to my name, which, like you said, we won't go too deep into it. But unfortunately, the good and bad thing about the internet is anyone can post anything, and in a lot of places, they can do it under someone else's name. And I'll be the first to admit I'm kind of I can come off kind of abrasive if people don't know me. So I've always been someone that people might be looking to retaliate against.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, just some stuff was attributed to me. There's some clearly Photoshop screenshots going around where if you look at them and you know anything about technology, you can tell they're Photoshopped. But you know how it is, man. Most people just read headlines. They don't really look too deep. So it is what it is. But ironically, my DM box is just stuff from a lot of players saying, yeah, we know it's not true. Sorry that you're going through that, man. It is what it is. As much as it supposedly affected recruiting, I think it really drives them crazy because they can't just push us out of that top 3 spot. And they know that we're pretty darn close to closing the gap.
Well, I guess we'll see in the next couple of weeks what happens with X-Men Gold on the leaderboard, huh?
That's the idea. Although I really wish the game picked a direction. Like, I've never cared for PvE personally. I understand its value. For me, PvE was always a mode where you grinded and got the stuff that made your PvP build better. But it seems to me like Future Revolution doesn't really know if it's a PvP focused or PvE focused game, and they're trying to kind of walk that line between the two of them.
Hmm.
And I mean, you know how hard it is to spec a character properly for one of those modes. Never mind both. Never mind having to spec multiple characters now
I'm
between
just
alliance raid,
barely
squad
at
battle.
working on my second one myself.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, I've got a full rise set max nanode. I've got a steampunk that's missing like 6 or 7 pieces, and I spend probably a good bit more than the average player, and it's not easy to do. You know, some guys I don't know how they have multiple sets max nanode. Not to mention everyone else in maxed out regionals. It's pretty impressive.
It definitely is. Well, thank you, man, for coming on. Was there any individual things you wanted to touch on, or I think that kind of covered how things progressed for you guys, huh?
Yeah, more or less. First of all, I appreciate you having us on and giving me a chance to just kind of get my side of things out there. And the one thing I do want to add is all these people that are saying the game is dead. I don't know if they've just not never played a Netmarble game before, but this is unfortunately standard operating procedure for Netmarble. We could argue the merits of how they're running the game, but it isn't really different than any other Marvel property they've ever had, whether you're talking about Future Fight, Puzzle Quest, or whatever. So I think that they're going to see this game will be around quite a long time.
Well, I also, before we head out, to build off of that, that's kind of a Marvel game right now. Strike Force and several others have had a drought of information or contact from their publishers from
Hmm.
about the last 6 to 8 weeks, which kind of lines up with Marvel Future Revolution's issues right now. So hopefully that just means something's coming down the pike. I don't know, but that's where my hopes are at.
Yeah, you and me both. Obviously, we both love this game, and I hate to think that the alarmists are correct, but I think we'll be okay.
All right, guys, in the comment section down below, let me think if you think this is the correct view of how things operated, or in the next video, if you believe Eros Trinidad is telling the story in the right way. Till next time, guys.